made with you. And he holds that to you, whether you're aware of it or not. You dealt treacherously with your wife, who is your covenant to God. And that doesn't just mean infidelity. That means the failure to fulfill the covenant. Ladies, God the Holy Spirit speaks of the woman that leaves the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. But God doesn't forget. And what does he say in Malachi 2:16? I hate divorce. God hates it. Don't do things God hates. Don't sanction things God hates. Don't make excuses for things God hates. And he hates divorce. Therefore, it is not in my vocabulary. It will not happen. I will not do it. I've been married 46 years. I would not think of doing something that God hates. I was at a conference and had spoken on the marriage covenant, and during the lunchroom there was this large area at the conference center with round tables, and there are men there debating the grounds for divorce, because I said, don't do something God hates. And so when I realized what was taking place, I stood up. And I got my plate and put my knife and fork on it. I got my glass, stuck my Bible under my arm, on my arm, and said, I'm sorry, I'm leaving this table. I'm leaving this discussion. Before I do, I want to say two things. First, by the time this conference is over, every woman in this conference, including your wife, will know the provisions you have made to get rid of her and marry a younger woman. Because they're talking about it already, aren't they? Now, it's amazing to me that when a man gets divorced, it's never God's will for him to marry an older woman, is it? Never marries a woman 10 years older, godly woman. Always marries a woman 10 years younger, doesn't he? So I said, first, second thing, I want you to know I will never get divorced. God hates divorce. I will never divorce my wife. I love her. I will not even enter into any discussion about divorce, and I'm going to sit at another table. Why would you even discuss something God hates? Why would you bandy that around? So that's just to tell you beforehand, if after this seminar you want to come up and trot out some verses on the circumstances under which you are already planning to get rid of your wife and marry a younger woman, I don't want to hear it. And you don't want to hear my reply to you. So we'll remain on good terms. You see, the covenant of marriage is both conceived and defined by God. It is made with God on the basis of legitimate needs of the husband and wife, to which the husband and wife are equally accountable. In Genesis 2:18, it says, God says, it's not good for man to be alone, so I will make him a helpmate for him. Men, why would you do something that at the dawn of creation, in the very created nature that God has made you, is not good for you? Why would you do that? Man says, well, I don't get drunk with wine. That's not good for you. And God says, don't do it. And I don't smoke cigarettes. It's not good for you. And God says, don't do it. I'm a good steward of my temple of the Holy Spirit, and I run and exercise and keep my weight down, because being overweight and gluttonous and lazy is not good for you, so I don't do it. But I leave my wife before she wakes up in the morning. I come in after she goes to bed at night. I take jobs in other cities where she doesn't live. I pursue educational degrees in other cities where she doesn't live. When I have free time and could come home, I spend time with my brothers watching a football game, or I drop by my earthly brother and see how he's doing, because it's not good to be alone, so I don't. Oops. You do it, don't you? Even though it's not good for you. Now, I have never understood something. Your wife understands if you have a serious event happening at work and you have to work extra hours, because you're providing for her materially. What she doesn't understand, and what your children don't understand, is that when you could come home, you don't. That's not good for you. Why do you do things that are not good for you? Not only this, let me ask you something. Let's see. This gentleman. What do we call men who enjoy the company of men rather than their woman? We call them homosexuals. Don't let the world squeeze you into the mold. Why? It gives me the willies to think about it. Spending time with a bunch of men when you could be home with your woman. Why would you do that? You say, well, I'll tell you what, John. This is how it is. My grandfather, he didn't do all this mushy spend time with his wife stuff. And I don't remember his wife being happy or having a good marriage. And my father, you won't find him coming home to this woman and doing all this talky, mushy stuff. And I don't remember my mother being happy. And by God's grace, my wife won't be happy either. Is that your testimony you want to have? Then don't do it. Do something different. Do something different. You see, men, whether you accept it or not, it is not good for you to be alone. And that's why God gave you a helpmate. Which would your children rather do? Eat ice cream or eat their greens? Which? Is that good for them? So you make them eat their greens. Do they understand that? No. But you do. Which would your children rather do? Play on their handheld device or do their homework? Play on their device. Do you let them do that? No. Do they understand why? No, that's why they have a parent. Which would your children rather do? Go to bed at a decent time, or like some children, they decide when they go to bed, and they walk around the house whining and finally fall asleep on the floor like a puppy, and you put them to bed. Which would they rather do? Stay up, wouldn't they? But you know they need a good night's sleep for school in the morning. Well, don't be a spiritual child, gentlemen. You might rather watch football games with your brothers. You may rather hang out somewhere with your male friends. You might rather go somewhere and do something. But it's not good for you to be alone. Come home. One of the reasons men don't come home is they come face to face with their own shortcomings. Their children are disobedient. The house is in disrepair. Their wife is lonely. So this is a legitimate need, gentlemen. And God is looking for you to be the spiritual leader. It is important for us, if we are going to lead, to have a plan, isn't it? And what else do you need to lead? Have to have. If you're a leader, it requires two things. First, for the leader to be there leading, doesn't it? You call a pastor to this church, and Tuesday night it's deacons meeting, but he's at the Methodist church at their deacons meeting. Okay? Wednesday night it's prayer meeting. He's at the Pentecostal church at their prayer meeting. Okay? Sunday morning he's supposed to be preaching. He's preaching at the Baptist church. Now, is it bad? Is it a sin to preach at a Baptist church? No. Is it a sin to attend a Pentecostal prayer meeting? No. Is it a sin to lead a deacon's meeting at a Methodist church? No. But that's not his job, is it? So you're not happy. So, gentlemen, for you to lead, two things. A plan, and you must be there. Would you be happy if he said, well, I sent you a text. I sent you a text on the order for the deacons meeting. I sent you some prayer requests to pray over, and I sent you my sermon outline. So now are you happy? No, you want him to be there. And gentlemen, you didn't have to get married. You didn't have to do it. Well, wait. I don't want to judge you gentlemen harshly, okay? So let me check something out. Is this your wife? Okay. When you were a young man, did she get down on one knee and say, you will make me the happiest woman in the world if you will marry me? Did she say that? Oh, you asked her, right? You asked her? Yeah, good. How many men here asked their wife? Oh, you didn't ask your wife? She asked you. Okay, yeah. No, gentlemen, you asked her. If you hadn't asked her, she could have waited upon the Lord for a godly, sensitive Christian husband who would come home, lead her spiritually, and take care of her. But you didn't give the Lord that opportunity, did you? You asked her, you fulfill the responsibility of your decision, okay? That's what God is holding you to, your covenant with him, whether she fulfills hers or not. We should be witnessing, right? Well, if people in the church don't witness, that means you don't have to witness, doesn't it? Does it? No. We should be praying, right? But if none of your family members are praying, that means you don't have to pray. Is that correct? And you have a marriage covenant with your wife. Does that mean if she does not fulfill her side, that you don't have to fulfill yours? Because it wasn't made with her. It was made with God. And then say, well, you know, if I come home every night and am the spiritual leader of my children, and I meet the emotional and personal needs of my wife and spend time with her every evening, and then we go out on dates and I'm always with her, you know, my brothers and the men I'm around, they're going to laugh at me. Let me ask you something. Amika, what do they call men who are more concerned about what men think about them than a woman? Yeah, they call him a pervert. Don't be one. Two things. One, if a man said, Eleanor had me wrapped around her finger, we would come to some serious discussions with another. And one of the discussions would be the fact that I'm her spiritual leader, and then we would talk about his neglect and sin in his relationship with his wife. And I would also point out to him that unlike him, I would rather be around a woman than a man, because I'm not a pervert. Don't let the world squeeze you into it. What do you think? What do you care about what men think about you? Did they laugh at Jesus? They did. Well, now you're in good company. Great. Did they laugh at Paul? Yeah, preaching on Mars Hill, people began laughing. Hey, Jesus and the apostles, now you're in good company, aren't you? What do you care? Be a man. Don't be a child. Here, this is a great verse. 1 Corinthians 16, verse 13. Now, if you have the NIV, which is a neutered Bible translation, which seeks to water down the verses towards the men. You notice in the NIV, it doesn't make Proverbs 31 neutral. It only makes Bible verses that deal with men neutral. English Standard Version, excellent word study Bible. New King James, excellent word study Bible. Here's what the verse says. Be on the alert. Stand firm in your faith. Act like men. Okay? Act like men. Be strong. What do you care? What do you care what other people say when you're obeying God? What do you care what other people say when you're fulfilling your covenant with God? Leviticus 19:11 says, thou shalt not lie, nor steal, nor deal falsely with one another. When I held a secular job, there was a lot of thievery going on. I wouldn't do it. People laughed at me. When Eleanor stayed home from work for 17 years to make sure the children were brought up in the instruction and discipline of the Lord, and we were living in a much lower financial strata than our friends, they laughed at us. When I tell people in the 29 years, in the 20 years I have been doing mission work in 29 countries, I have never paid a bribe or lied on my visa, they laugh. And the people at the customs office laugh, among other things. Pretty soon they get tired of waiting for the bribe and go on to the others who will pay it. People are going to laugh anyways. They might as well laugh for you obeying God than laugh for you not. They're going to laugh at you anyways. And your friends won't laugh at you. That's a good way to find out who your friends are. See, you're going to be the spiritual leader of the family that you might sanctify her. Gentlemen, that means to set your wife apart to God's service and glory. That's what sanctify means. That's a proactive stance. That is something you are doing. You are taking responsibility for that. Now, generally, Eleanor would be here with me. This is the first time in 20 years of mission work that we have been apart for this long. In fact, in our whole marriage. The plane ticket was bought, and she was ready to go when our third child developed blood clots in her lungs. And they got on top of it quick enough that she has to be in bed rest and very limited activity until those clots dissolve. Because, you know, if they break apart, you have brain damage. So we prayed about it, and her husband was going to take a 3-month leave of absence with no pay to care for her. Boy, what a wonderful son-in-law. But they only lived 20 minutes away from us, so we prayed about it, and Eleanor said, you know, I'm going to stay with your permission. I'll take her to the doctor. I'll pick up her prescriptions. I'll do the shopping. Make sure she's taken care of. So that's why she's not here. But otherwise, she won't. It's not. And how can I be her spiritual protector and spiritual leader if I'm not there? I'm staying with a gentleman who has a gated house, and he has a gentleman who serves as night watchman. What if you find out your night watchman has taken another job selling corn in the market? When God looks down from heaven and he sees the man he gave to be the spiritual protector and minister of his wife, and you're not there, is he happy? Do you think your estate is more valuable to you than the temple of the Holy Spirit is to God? And she is the temple of the Holy Spirit, and you are responsible for her spiritual care. Now, ladies, what does that presuppose about you? That you're willing to follow. Ephesians 5:22, you're to submit to your husband as the church does to Christ. You say, well, my husband's not a Christian, or I'm my husband. Well, that's a very humble statement, isn't it? I'm more spiritual than my husband. Yeah, very, very humble. 1 Peter 3:1, in the same way, you wives, be submissive to your husbands, so that if any one of them are disobedient to the word, they may be won without a word by the behavior of their wives, as they observe your chaste and respectful behavior. Verse 5, for in this way, in former times, the holy women also who hoped in God, what was their adornment? Being submissive to your husbands. Ladies, when God looks down from heaven on you on Sunday morning, does he see your physical raiment? Or irrespective of what you can afford to adorn yourself physically with, does he see a holy woman who is adorned with submission to her husband? Hey, don't get mad at me. It's for your husband never to argue with you again. Will you like that? I'm going to tell you a secret phrase. And ladies, if you will say this secret phrase, all arguments from your husband will cease. Do you want it? Wouldn't that be great? Get ready. Are you ready to write? Yes, dear, just as you say. But for some of you, an argument with your husband is more important than to be adorned in the raiment of submission as the holy women of old. How did Delilah get her way? How did she get her way? She cried, she wept, she vexed him, she nagged him, she vexed him, she cried, and she wept, didn't she? To her husband's downfall. And you say, well, they were going to kill her whole family, weren't they? Well, Esther, they weren't going to kill her family. They were going to kill her whole tribe. And how did she respond? She loved her husband and fixed him a banquet. And then another one. And the clock was ticking. And then another one. And she waited upon God, didn't she? She was a holy woman of old, clothed in the raiment of submission. So, Delilah was clothed in very sensual, earthly raiments, but it was a wicked woman. What do your discussions with your husband, when there is a disagreement, what does it reflect? Delilah or Esther? Hey, it's the Bible, isn't it? Gentlemen, you have with you a quiet time sheet. Now, on our website, www.gciweb.org, are hundreds of these, and they're all free. Everything on our website is free. It's not free if you make a donation. It's not free if you buy a book. It's not free, but we sell your email address. It's free. It's not free. The junk is free, but then we try to sell you something better. It's free. www.gciweb.org. The gentleman, you are responsible to lead your wife spiritually, and it begins with the daily quiet time alone with God. And these sheets will help you. Now, I asked the gentleman this afternoon, suppose there was a vaccine that was developed, and it has been fully tested. It has no ill effects. But for 50% of the people who receive the vaccine, they will never have a virus or a bacterial infection again. 50%, it's ineffective. They don't know why. Doesn't have any negative effects at all. At all. But for 50%, you'll never get sick again. Would you take the vaccine? You wouldn't? Why wouldn't you? Are you afraid? It doesn't have, I'm saying it's not harmful, okay? And for 50% of the people who take it, it's offered to everybody. I'm not saying and 50%, there's a 50-50 chance you'll never get sick again. Would you take it? Yeah. Then you go to take it, and they say, also, we have offered for free this jar of pills, 365 pills. If in the morning, after receiving the vaccine, you'll take one of these pills every morning, and if you agree to it, we'll send you at no charge another bottle every January 1. 99.9% of the people who take the pill never get sick again. Would you take the pill? Sure. Well, Princeton University did a study on unhappy marriages. And one of the things they studied were Christian marriages. And they found that 50% of people who married in the church had a happy marriage.